Inside El Salvador, CECOT, the world's largest high-security prison for gang inmates. The night the gates closed. Before we go any further, hit subscribe, smash the like button, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Because once this story begins, there's no turning back. The convoy rolled in just before dawn. Under a sky still bruised with darkness, armored buses cut to the empty highway like silent predators. Their headlights reflected off concrete barriers, razor wire, and watchtowers that seemed to rise straight out of the earth. This was not a place marked on tourist maps. This was CECOT, El Salvador's terrorism confinement center, a prison built not just to hold men, but to erase the power they once commanded. Inside the lead bus, every movement was measured. Chains clinked softly, boots pressed against the metal floor. The air smelled of diesel, sweat, and fear that no one dared to admit. These were not ordinary inmates. Many had once ruled neighborhoods, ordered violence with a phone call, and inspired loyalty that outlived prison walls. Tonight, they were being transferred into a facility designed to break that influence forever. Outside, soldiers formed a corridor of rifles and riot shields. Cameras recorded every second. Helicopters hovered overhead, their rotors chopping the silence into pieces. This was history unfolding in real time, the largest mass transfer of high-risk gang inmates the country had ever seen. CECOT rose ahead like a fortress. Its walls were massive, pale concrete, unadorned and unforgiving. No windows faced outward. No signs. No name. Just layers of security stacked upon security. It wasn't meant to intimidate the public. It was meant to intimidate the men inside. As the first bus doors opened, the process began. Orders were shouted. Lines formed. Heads were lowered. Every inmate was searched, scanned, photographed, and stripped of anything that could carry meaning. Tattoos were documented, scars noted, even posture observed. Here, identity was evidence. Among the transfers was a man the officers quietly referred to as El Professor. No one used his real name. He didn't need one. For years, he had coordinated operations across prison walls, using coded messages, corrupt intermediaries, and fear as his currency. Even behind bars, his influence had never fully disappeared. That was why he was here. Across the yard, another figure drew attention for the opposite reason. Young, silent, eyes fixed forward. Files described him as a low-level enforcer, but intelligence suggested otherwise. Witnesses claimed he'd been present at multiple high-level meetings, always quiet, always listening. The kind of man investigators worry about most, the one who learned while others talked. Overseeing the transfer was Inspector Rafael Mina, a veteran of 2 decades in anti-gang operations. He had seen prisons fail before. He had watched leaders continue to command loyalty from cells with barred windows and loose oversight. CECOT was supposed to be different. Absolute isolation. No communication. No hierarchy. No shadows to hide in. But as Mina watched the inmates disappear into the intake wing, a familiar unease settled in his chest. Systems were built by people, and people made mistakes. Inside the facility, the design was surgical. Cell blocks stretched endlessly, each unit identical to the next. Steel doors, reinforced concrete, constant lighting. No corners left unwatched. Guards moved in synchronized patterns, trained to anticipate disruptions before they began. Every step an inmate took was logged, every meal timed, every silence monitored. Yet even here, something felt off. During processing, a discrepancy appeared in the digital intake system. A name that didn't match a biometric scan. A prisoner listed under one transfer order, but arriving under another. At first, it looked like a clerical error, the kind that happened during large operations. But when a junior analyst flagged it, the response was immediate and tense. Mina was called down to the control room. On the screen was a still image from intake footage. The inmate's face was partially obscured by angle and lighting, but his posture was unmistakable. Relaxed. Too relaxed. Not the posture of a man entering the most restrictive prison in the world. Run the scan again, Mina ordered. The technician did. Same result. No match in the system. No prior incarceration record tied to this biometric profile. Yet the man was here, processed, locked behind reinforced steel. That wasn't possible. CECOT did not accept walk-ins. Every transfer was planned weeks in advance, vetted, cross-checked, approved at the highest levels. An unverified inmate inside these walls meant only one thing. Someone, somewhere, had intervened. As alarms quietly escalated behind the scenes, guards were instructed to hold their positions. No movement, no confrontation. The facility went into a soft lockdown, a protocol designed to contain uncertainty without alerting inmates. Mina stared at the screen, a cold realization forming. This prison was built to end gang power, to sever command chains, to send a message that control had finally shifted. But if someone had managed to manipulate a transfer into CECOT itself, the most secure prison in the region, then the threat hadn't been eliminated. It had adapted. And as the steel doors sealed shut for the night, locking thousands of men into silence, one question echoed through the control room. Who had just been let inside? Because when they pulled the full file tied to that unknown inmate, the sealed documents, the restricted clearance notes, the warnings buried deep in classified reports, what they found changed everything. The system under pressure. By the time the sun rose over CECOT, the prison was already awake. Lights never fully went out here. They dimmed, shifted, watched. Cameras hummed softly behind reinforced glass, tracking every movement, every pause, every breath that lingered too long. To the outside world, CECOT was a symbol of control. Inside, it was a machine under constant strain, and Inspector Rafael Mina felt that strain tightening with every passing hour. The unidentified inmate was now locked in Unit Delta, the most restricted wing in the facility. Delta was reserved for prisoners deemed capable of influencing others without speaking, men whose reputations alone could move behavior like gravity. Every cell there was isolated, soundproofed, and designed to eliminate even accidental contact. Yet the damage, if there was any, might already have been done. Mina stood in the observation corridor with Warden Lucia Herrera, a woman known for her discipline and refusal to bend under political pressure. She had helped design CECOT's operational doctrine, insisting that fear alone was not control. Predictability was. "Run the intake chain again," she said calmly. Every signature, every approval. They did. The trail was flawless on the surface. Digital authorizations matched physical documents. Biometric confirmations were present, except for the one that mattered most. Somewhere between transfer authorization and arrival, the system had accepted a ghost. Within hours, Internal Affairs was quietly activated, not with sirens or raids, but with interviews disguised as routine evaluations. Guards were rotated. Shift logs were reviewed down to the minute. No one was accused, but everyone felt it. Suspicion moved through the prison like cold air. Meanwhile, subtle changes began to appear among the inmates. Nothing dramatic, no disturbances, no violations, but patterns shifted. Men who had never timed their exercises now moved in synchronized intervals. Meal trays were returned untouched by certain cells on the same days. A guard noticed inmates standing at attention during head counts, not out of fear, but recognition. Someone was communicating. That shouldn't have been possible. CECOT was built to prevent exactly this kind of coordination. No shared recreation, no shared meals, no verbal contact. Yet influence didn't always require words. It required symbols, timing, understanding. And someone inside Delta seemed to have all three. The unidentified inmate remained silent during observation periods. He followed every rule precisely, never testing boundaries. His posture was neutral, his gaze unfocused. But when analysts replayed footage at higher speeds, something unsettling emerged. Other inmates reacted before he did, as if anticipating his movements. That was when Mina realized the truth was worse than a simple breach. This wasn't a leader trying to rebuild power. This was a strategist embedding himself inside a system designed to erase him. Files from national intelligence finally arrived under restricted clearance. They painted a fragmented picture. The man had never been a public figure. No tattoos, no known aliases. He operated in logistics, coordination, prisoner movement, and internal discipline. He wasn't feared because he was violent. He was feared because he made violence unnecessary. And according to the documents, he wasn't supposed to be alive. Years earlier, he had vanished during a transfer between facilities, officially listed as released due to lack of evidence. Unofficially, suspected of orchestrating false documentation from inside custody. No body, no confirmation, just absence. Now he was here. Warden Herrera ordered control test. A temporary shift in routine for Unit Delta. Meal times adjusted by 7 minutes. Recreation canceled without notice. Surveillance feeds delayed by seconds to detect anticipation. The results were immediate. The inmates adjusted instantly. Not chaotically. Perfectly. Someone had warned them. The realization hit hard. Communication wasn't happening through guards or systems. It was happening through expectation, through patterns established long before these men ever arrived at CECOT. Protocols memorized, rehearsed, activated the moment conditions aligned. CECOT had assumed isolation would erase memory. It hadn't. As pressure mounted, higher authorities demanded answers. Politicians wanted reassurance. International observers wanted transparency. The narrative of total control was cracking, and everyone felt it. Then came the disappearance. During a routine internal transfer, a guard escorting an inmate from medical screening back to his cell. One man failed to arrive. No alarms were triggered. No cameras showed a breach. The inmate simply vanished between two secure checkpoints. The lockdown was immediate and absolute. Cells sealed. Corridors frozen. Armed units deployed. For 6 hours, the prison held its breath while every inch was searched. Eventually, the inmate was found, unharmed, inside a maintenance alcove that should have been inaccessible without high-level authorization. The message was clear. CECOT could be entered, it could be navigated, and its rules could be anticipated. That night, Mina reviewed footage alone, frame by frame, movement by movement, and in the reflection of a polished steel door, he saw it. The unidentified inmate's eyes, briefly lifting to the camera. Not defiant, amused. Mina understood then that this wasn't a test of security. It was a test of control. And someone inside CECOT was proving that even the most advanced prison in the world could still be studied, learned, and quietly challenged. As emergency meetings were scheduled and contingency plans drafted, one final alert flashed across Mina's screen, an encrypted internal memo marked urgent. It contained a single line. If Delta collapses, it won't start with violence. It will start with obedience. And somewhere behind concrete walls and steel doors, the system was already obeying. The illusion of control. By the 3rd day of lockdown, CECOT no longer felt like a prison. It felt like a question no one could answer. Every protocol had been activated. External oversight teams arrived under non-disclosure agreements. Intelligence officials flew in without press statements. On paper, the system was functioning perfectly. In reality, it was reacting, and reacting was a sign of weakness. Inspector Rafael Mina stood before the Central Operations Wall, watching hundreds of blue-tone camera feeds pulse in real time. No fights, no alarms, no visible resistance. And yet, the unease was unmistakable. Control hadn't been challenged through chaos. It had been challenged through precision. The unidentified inmate in Unit Delta remained silent. That was the most disturbing part. Interrogation attempts failed before they began. He answered every question with calm compliance. Name? Verified but untraceable. History? Fragmented. Motivation? Unclear. He never denied anything. He never admitted anything. He simply existed inside the system as if he had helped design it. Analysts reached a troubling conclusion. Removing him would be more dangerous than leaving him. CECOT wasn't dealing with a riot leader or an escape artist. It was dealing with a stabilizer, someone whose presence created order, not disorder. The synchronized behaviors, the calm compliance, the absence of panic. Those weren't signs of submission. They were signs of influence. And influence, once established, didn't need proximity. Warden Lucia Herrera faced pressure from every direction. International media demanded answers. Human rights observers questioned the secrecy. Political leaders wanted reassurance that CECOT remained unbreakable. Herrera knew better. Nothing was unbreakable. It could only appear that way until someone understood it deeply enough. A decision was made behind closed doors. The unidentified inmate would not be transferred. He would be absorbed. Official records were quietly amended. His classification was changed. His history simplified. To the outside world, he became just another high-risk detainee. No special notes. No alerts. No attention. If the system couldn't remove him without consequences, it would neutralize him through obscurity. The lockdown ended without announcement. Life inside CECOT returned to routine. Meals resumed. Transfers continued. Guards rotated back to standard shifts. From the outside, the crisis vanished as if it had never happened. But for those watching closely, something had changed. Unit Delta no longer synchronized its movements. Patterns dissolved. Anticipation faded. The prison breathed again, but cautiously, as if aware it had been studied. Mina reviewed the final report alone. It would never be released publicly. Its conclusion was simple and unsettling. CECOT had succeeded in containing its inmates. It had not succeeded in understanding them. The unidentified inmate remained inside his cell, following every rule, breaking none. Over time, even the analysts stopped watching him. Attention moved elsewhere. New threats emerged. New priorities replaced old fears. That was the point. Control, Mina realized, wasn't about force. It was about belief. As long as the system believed it was in control, it was. The moment it doubted, it became vulnerable, not to violence, but to intelligence. Years later, a journalist would ask an anonymous official a simple question. Was CECOT ever truly tested? The answer came after a long pause. It passed, the official said, but not in the way we expected. Some stories don't end with escapes, riots, or headlines. Some end with silence, and the quiet understanding that even the strongest walls depend on the people who believe in them. And that belief, once shaken, never fully returns. If this story pulled you into the shadows of the world's most secure prisons, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with anyone who wants to understand what really happens behind locked gates. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and which prison or case you want to uncover next, because the next story is already waiting.